All right, so today we're going deep on something pretty heavy. We're looking at the aftermath of that Russian missile strike on Kryvyi.
President Zelensky's hometown.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got this news report breaking it all down.
Right.
And I guess for this deep dive, we really want to get a sense of, the immediate impact, obviously, like what happened on the ground.
Of course.
But also, like, how are different sides even explaining this?
Absolutely.
And then how do we even begin to talk about, paths to peace after something like this happens?
Yeah, for you, this event really brings the human cost of this conflict into such sharp focus.
It's awful.
It is. And the report highlights this right away, just the sheer tragedy of it. 18 dead.
And 9 of them children.
9 children. Just think about that for a moment.
God. And, reading through this report from Kryvyi, it really hits you that this wasn't some kind of military base or something. This was a residential area.
Right in the heart of a community.
Yeah, you're talking about like scorched playgrounds, ruined apartments.
This is where normal life is supposed to happen.
Exactly. And even a 3-month-old baby was wounded in the strike.
It's just devastating.
It is. And, I have to mention, Kiev is saying Russia used cluster warheads in this attack.
That's a serious allegation for you to consider, and we should talk about why.
Please.
Because cluster munitions, they release all these smaller bomblets over a wide area.
So they can't be targeted precisely.
Exactly, and that's why they're condemned by so many international organizations.
It makes you question who they were really trying to hit.
Exactly what was the intended target here.
Right, because then, reading further in the report, you see Moscow's explanation, and they're claiming they were targeting military meeting in Kryvyi.
So right away, you have these completely opposing explanations coming from both sides.
Totally. And it's not just about, like, different interpretations, right?
It's more than that.
Yeah. I mean, you have Kiev talking about the deliberate targeting of civilians and use of these awful cluster munitions.
And then you have Moscow insisting this was a legitimate military target.
So how do you even begin to sort through that?
Well, for you, it's important to remember this is part of information warfare.
Like propaganda.
Exactly. Each side is framing this event in a very specific way to try to gain international support.
And to discredit the other side.
Precisely. And understanding this battle over the narrative is so crucial for you to figure out what information is actually credible.
Totally. And of course, the international community is reacting in a bunch of different ways.
Right.
This report mentions that Trump is pushing for a ceasefire.
So that's one approach, right?
Yeah.
De-escalation.
Right.
If you try to connect this back to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
a ceasefire would theoretically stop the immediate violence.
And these horrible tragedies like we're seeing in Kryvyi.
But for you, the real question is, what would the terms of that ceasefire even look like?
And would it actually lead to any kind of lasting peace?
That's the key question.
Because on the flip side, you have France and Britain warning that Russia might actually be stalling any real peace efforts.
And this raises such a crucial question for you about Russia's intentions.
Like, what are they actually trying to do here?
Are they actually interested in a negotiated settlement?
Or are they just buying time?
Or are they focused on making territorial gains through military force while the talking is happening?
So France and Britain are basically worried that Russia might be using these calls for peace.
As a tactic.
As a way to distract everyone while they keep fighting.
And maybe even consolidate the gains they've already made.
Something to think about, for sure.
Yeah.
And, I keep going back to this image from the report, the immediate aftermath, survivors just sifting through the debris.
It's powerful imagery.
It is, and it makes you think beyond, the numbers and the statistics.
These are real people's lives completely shattered.
In an instant.
In an instant. And, we have to talk about the loss of those 9 children.
It's unimaginable.
It really underscores just how vulnerable civilians are in this conflict.
Yeah.
And that there's such an urgent need for de-escalation if we want to prevent more tragedies like this one.
Absolutely. This human cost, especially when you're talking about children, it just has to be a central part of how we understand this whole situation.
It has to be.
So just to kind of recap for everyone listening, we went through the awful details of the missile strike in Kryvyi.
Right.
We looked at the totally conflicting explanations from Kiev and Moscow.
About who the target was, what weapons were used.
And then we even touched on the different ways the international community is reacting. Some pushing for a ceasefire, others worried about Russia's motives.
And for you, the real takeaway here has to be the human tragedy of it all.
So clearly shown by the deaths of all those children.
This event just screams the need to find a way to stop the violence.
It does. So I have to ask, given all this suffering we've been talking about, all stemming from just this one event,
Yeah.
what are the biggest challenges in actually achieving lasting peace here?
That's a huge question.
It is, but it's the question we have to be asking ourselves. And what role can different actors play in this? Different countries, international organizations, even individuals like us.
What can we do?
What can we do to address those challenges and work towards some kind of solution for everyone?
It's a profound question.
It is, but it's something we all have to grapple with.
For sure.
Especially after a deep dive like this.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having me.